Hey YouTube, have a couple more budget blades for you today. The bottom knife is the Honshu Mini Tanto. Alright, and the knife above it, you see it's a Bowie tip design. They're calling that the Honshu Combat Fighter. Alright, now the steel on these is listed as AUS 8. However, on the blade itself, it is stamped 7CR13. The blade length on the Mini Tanto is 6¼ inches, and the blade length on the Combat Fighter is about 6.6 inches. Right, and you see they both have partial hollow grinds, right, and they have basically cylindrical shaped handles, rubberized handles. They have oval shaped metal guards and also metal pommels that have lanyard holes, and they have the what's called the skull crusher shape to the pommels. All right, and here is a close-up of, you see the grind on the Mini Tanto, the tip, the sub-tip. It also has a fuller running down towards the spine side of the blade. Actually looks pretty nice, you know, just as far as the appearance for the price. And here's a close-up of the, that's the skull crusher pommel, handle, and the guard. Alright, and here's a close-up of the Combat Fighter. You see the Bowie tip design and the hollow grind on that. And the handles are basically, well, they are identical. Skull crusher lanyard hole. These are the sheaths that they come with. This is the one for the Combat Fighter. You see they're basically thick stitched leather sheaths with belt loops and with horizontal button closure retaining straps. Alright, and here is the Mini Tanto in its sheath. You know, it's a cheap sheath, obviously $30 knife, what do you expect? It does retain the blade, but you know, that's about it. No, not really quick deployment or anything. You know, it's better than a machete sheath, but you know, that's about it. And here is the Combat Fighter in its sheath. Yes, it does retain it. Alright, but it's pretty much what you would expect. There you go. Here you see a size comparison between the Honshu Mini Tanto and the cold steel Koban. The Honshu is about 1¼ inch longer in blade length, and you see it is also wider. And they are about the same price. I have to say the cold steel knife was far sharper out of the box. The Honshu, it's medium sharp. The Koban was razor sharp. And overall, I do prefer the Koban just in terms of overall quality. Really, the only thing that the Honshu has going for it is that it's simply longer and bigger. All right, so if you want something a little bit bigger than the Koban, then maybe. But the Koban is really excellent for the price. The Honshu, it's on the border of being usable, not usable. I would compare it to cheaper knives like Smith & Wesson type knives. Obviously, it is pointy, it is sharp, yes, it could do damage. Would I trust this in a real serious situation? No, probably not. You know, I would call this more of a training blade, a live training blade. All right, if you want to do some martial arts and practice with a live blade, obviously, if you're qualified, and you just want a cheap knife that's a certain, you know, that is this size, well then sure. Alright, so I would consider it a live training blade, a light use blade. It's certainly not something that you would go off to war with, alright? Alright, and here's the Honshu Combat Fighter. You know, my opinion on this blade, again, I would not really trust this in a serious either wartime situation or a serious outdoor survival situation. I see this knife as, I could see it being used as light utility, like just a beater knife around, you know, a camp knife. If you sharpened it up to razor sharpness, I could definitely see using it as a skinning knife, because obviously the Bowie tip, the belly it offers, it would make a nice skinner, but certainly not a hard use knife. It is a get what you pay for situation, you know. It's a $30 knife. I think $20 would be a more fair price for this knife. All right, here are the two mid-sized knives in comparison to two of the other knives in the Honshu line. And you know, when you review a knife, a lot of people assume you are recommending that knife. I want to make clear, I am not recommending these two smaller Honshu knives. I'm just reviewing them because the catalogs these appear in are such popular catalogs that there's going to be thousands of people looking at them. You're looking at the cheap price and you're wondering, wow, you know, it's a cheap price. Maybe I could use it. Maybe, you know, is it worth it? All right, so for, you know, informational sake, I'm reviewing them. But I have to say, honestly, the two larger Honshu knife designs make a whole lot more sense to me than the mid-sized ones. The top two designs are clearly thrusting designs. Okay, as you can see, this Honshu version, it's kind of similar to the cold steel Taipan. This design makes sense to me. It's mainly a thrusting design, so the cheaper steel and the not so sharp edge out of the box, that's not that much of a factor. This is basically an old school Chinese dagger design. Okay, so for the price, this blade makes sense to me. Right now, this very large Honshu also makes a lot of sense to me, because you see it is fairly thick, it's fairly sturdy, and I think obviously, again, it's basically a thrusting design, so the steel and the initial sharpness, you know, it matters much less, right? So for the price, these two bigger Honshus, you know, they seem workable. These smaller ones, you know, they just don't seem as practical, even as, you know, martial arts type weapons. Alright, so overall, a mixed review on these mid-sized Honshus. I would almost say, you know, just skip these and maybe go for the larger size Honshus or the karambits or push daggers. It just seems like these two mid-sized Honshus are basically my least favorite. I think they give you the least value for the line. Now obviously, don't get me wrong, hey, it's 30 bucks. I'm not going to get on your case about buying, you know, it's 30 bucks. So if you want it just because the Tanto shape looks pretty cool and the finish looks pretty cool, and you know, you don't really plan to go get in some sort of knife altercation so it doesn't frickin' matter, then fine. You know, buy it as novelty, or buy it even as a light camping knife, or as a light just to practice martial arts katas, etc., then fine. It is a cheap price. Alright, so that's my overview of these. I hope I didn't offend anyone, you know, just my opinion, and I hope it was useful to you. You saw these knives, you wondered, hey, is it worth the $30? I think they'd more be worth $20 would be more reasonable for these. Again, just my opinion. Stay tuned for many more videos. I am out of here, dudes.